And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be discussing Dexter New Blood, episode number 6, Too Many Tuna Sandwiches. Uh, the episode ended, well, full spoilers. Sometimes I say that, sometimes I don't, but I put it in the comments. So um, the episode ends with the declaration, I need Dexter Morgan. I thought that was a great line. Angela now is aware of the truth of Dex, well, part of his truth that he was a forensics expert and that that was a big part of his life. He faked his death. It's funny because in that particular scene, I know I'm jumping around, but he didn't really lie. He told her all his truths. He just left out certain parts. But basically, she finds Iris's body in the cave because she's suspecting Kurt Caldwell. She's on his land and she needs someone to investigate. And she calls in Dexter. Um, yeah, but
Yeah, she don't want Jim.
starting, yeah, she don't want Jim. She don't want the guy that'll sell you a knife. She needs the guy that'll.
Use the
I,
knife.
yeah, yeah, true. It's gonna be. I'm actually sort of excited to see him working again.
Yeah.
Him going in that cave and laying out how the murder happened and everything. But yeah, going from there, I know I jumped around a bit, but you know, they found Iris.
Well, and I think this not only is it a big deal that they found Iris. When you talk about Dexter being Dexter again, I wonder what that'll play with his relationship with Harrison, because he's been wrestling with this. Should I tell him? Should I not? How do I deal with him? Basically, being me but with no guidance, and then listening to Kurt and like trying to hurt people who don't really deserve it. And I think this,
That
once
kid
he gets
deserved
in
it.
and investigates stuff again. Oh yeah, he deserved a broken arm. But like, I think that I think that this is going to be Dexter's reintroduction to not only Dexter, but it's also going to be Harrison's introduction to Dexter.
Yeah, I think it'll be everybody's, sort of introduction. And I'm wondering if it'll go that far, if it'll wind up being, if he's going to come out to the whole town, or is he going to pretend to be Jim, throughout this whole season, what remains of the season, and potentially even the next one, or since the cat's out of the bag with her, if he's just going to be Dexter Morgan, because it's not like anybody in Miami is hunting or suspecting him anymore. He's just he told her everything that everyone knows about Dexter Morgan. He just didn't say anything about the Bay Harbor Butcher.
Exactly. 100%. Like he didn't lie. He told her the truth. He just left out certain details. And like you said, no one is looking for him that we know of. Um, and I love the line, "Faking your death's not a crime." He came in her office and then explaining. And it's funny because you guys you're talking about how you know we're going to see Dexter Morgan next in the next episode. This whole episode was him between the moment where he spoke with her to the therapy session was him coming to terms with the fact that he's hidden away for so long, that he's buried Dexter deep down. And now, yeah, I agree. This is sort of that transition to where no, we're getting Dexter again. Even the line when he sees Kurt and what's her name, Molly Park, and he talks about how he's rusty and how obvious it is that Kurt's a serial killer,
Right.
and he missed it. And how could Dexter Morgan not have figured this out already? And so he's starting to slowly but surely be Dexter again.
One, I think too, when you look at uh, the not just him dealing with the fact that he's getting ready to be himself again, I think it's important too going forward when you look at this is a mini series, and I don't know if this is going to be more or less or whatever, but like when you said nobody's looking for him, he has a perfect explanation for it, and he gave, and it's a pretty genuine explanation. Dexter's a pretty good, not liar, but liar. He's pretty good at making shit up and making it make sense. But when he explained to, God, what's the sheriff's name? I don't know why her name completely escaped me.
Angela, right? Bishop.
Oh yeah,
That's
and
yeah.
I kept saying Bassett instead of Bishop. When they like her character itself is, in a situation where he explains it to her perfectly. It's my sister died, my wife died, everybody I got close to was dying. My surrogate mother died, then my dad died. Like it's, Harry was for all intents and purposes his dad. It's, the one that taught him life lessons, and all these people died. So in reality, he was just trying not to hurt anybody else. But him going away and hiding was his way of getting away from himself. So him realizing that he needs to be himself to truly be, Dexter is a great thing because it's going to make the show a whole lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, in the therapy session and everything that Angela, told him to go to. I think that whole scene, because y'all mentioned that earlier, just kind of showed that, that's when it really hit that, well, at least to me, that, it's not so much that Harrison is broken, and Harrison is, kind of broken up and lost and everything, but Dexter really is too. He doesn't even know how to talk to this kid. He doesn't know how to address who he is, or, given all the complications, how to even make Jim or Dexter or whoever he's going to be fit into this town, really.
He knows how to make a bomb ass steak. Man, I wanted a steak
Apparently.
so bad. um, Going to the therapy session, did you guys notice a hell of an acting job to the actor playing Harrison when Dexter started going into his childhood and the fact that he was an orphan, that he lost his mother at a young age? Did you see Harrison's reaction? Like, holy shit. Like, sort of that realization that, wow, we have similar backgrounds. And the more the show goes on and the more we learn about or think about it, even, these two guys Harrison has the same blueprint
Yeah.
that Dexter had. They are very, very similar. The series is called New Blood, and Harrison is very much a next generation Dexter.
Yeah, and it's kind of Dexter's fault for the exact opposite reason that he thought it would be, because he is shutting Harrison out because he won't really talk to him, which that therapy session shows, where he says he feels abandoned, and that's in part because, like you said, that session showed even more how similar they are, and the one person that could possibly help him, that could, kind of connect the dots to him, won't even communicate with him.
We we had, and I wanted your guys' opinion on this because I had a lot of thoughts on it. We have the moment where Harrison goes and speaks with Audrey, and in her room, and they end up hooking up, and I thought that was funny that they fall asleep until the next morning and get caught. But when he goes to her room, we have the big revelation that, I've hurt people. I want to hurt people. That's all I want to do. So sort of the whole, okay, he's very much Dexter. But the thing that I thought was most disturbing about the scene was the shot of his back pocket. He had the razor with him. Was he there? Was he thinking about doing something? Was it on his mind? He keeps bringing up, he said it like 50 times in the show about how his mother died, not his biological mother, but his stepmother or whatever you want to call her, Hannah. I still don't buy that story. I think there's more to that. I mean, whether he did it or not, I don't know, but I don't know, man. Every time he says it, I just have a feeling that there's more to that story, even.
Yeah, Hannah's brought up enough recently that it definitely feels like there's more, and I've suspected for a while because we've only gotten Harrison's portion of it, and he's definitely been known to bend the truth since he's been on the show, and so I'm very curious whether she's actually dead, or if she is dead, is Harrison responsible in some way? It's hard to say.
Do you think he Do you think he, in any way, shape, or form, was considering using that razor on Audrey? Do you
That's
think?
a
I know. I just don't know what. Yeah, what kind of mindset he's in? Because his exact line, "I want to hurt everyone."
yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. Like, does he may feel like he wants to hurt it, but does he also have compulsions like like Dexter or like our serial or like Kurt or something, does she fit the profile, or was he about to do something and did he just stop, think about it, and then go to Audrey because that's his closest friend to sort of stop himself, sort of realizing how
Oh yeah,
abnormal that is.
that's a good yeah.
Well, I think we go back to we always talk about the sociopathic tendencies. It's almost like he wants someone to tell him not to do something. Like it's almost like he wants to be normal, but knows he can't. And when you look back at what Harry did to Dexter, like Harry helped guide Dexter because Dexter's just like, yeah, I don't give a shit about any of these people. Like, you need to go to prom. And he's like, why? I don't fucking care. Like, it was one of those things where how Dexter reacted to certain situations, um, Harrison doesn't act the same. And that's why it's odd to me because we talk about blueprints and stuff. Harrison is so much like Dexter, but it doesn't seem that he wants, like, it's like he doesn't. I'm trying to equate it to, a kid with severe ADHD who doesn't have like impulse control. I
Come
watched.
on,
Have you
come on
seen
now,
the?
don't call me out now.
Uh, uh, there's a documentary on Netflix, "The Malice in the Palace," where it's when all the basketball players, like in 2004, jumped into the stands and beat the shit out of some fans and stuff. But it's a documentary about the player side of that story. So they went into all these, the different videos and stuff, and how a fan like threw a beer and hit Ron Artest right in the face, and it was crazy. But Ron Artest had severe anxiety and like severe depression. So he was explaining that all emotions, good and bad, were not good for him. He didn't know how to control his emotions. And it feels more like that with Harrison than it does with Dexter. Dexter didn't have a whole lot of feelings about anything until he started to like Rita. And then it started to be like, you know what? Not vengeful, but it was like he was trying to protect her. Whereas before, he was using killing people as an outlet. Whereas Harrison feels like he wants to be better, but he's like wrestling with something.
He needs
So
guidance. Like
yeah,
he's in search of a mentor, and they've sort of building up the idea that Kurt and Dexter are sort of in a war for that job.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the sort of thing like I think you were saying in part two, Spencer. It's like he's like Dexter, but he's also better at being a person than Dexter because he can be popular and charismatic and everything. And yet it's not enough. When he has all that, when he has all that glory, there's still something else that seems to be missing for him.
It's so, I mean, and he I mean, he kills the role. I love Dexter, Michael C. Hall. The when Angela breaks up with him, and he stands up and he's like, "You're gonna keep my secret, right?" If you did you see the little tiny smile he gives? Because he doesn't give he doesn't give a shit. He never, the rest of the episode, he's not mourning the loss of that relationship. He doesn't care. It was all just it's a face he wears. It's a mask he puts on. Like he doesn't really care. And he plays that so well. And he has to pretend. He has to, put on the face of, "Oh, yeah, this is a problem." But he doesn't give a shit.
Right. In fact, potentially even, on a subconscious level to some degree for him, getting in that relationship may have been his way of somehow fitting his old routine into his new routine because he, sort of by proxy hears about all her cases and can kind of fit things together. It's I guess it's kind of like anyone that quits any habit and does something, close to it to sort of, cope or to replace that.
She also is. This is, look, I'm gonna go there, but she's similar to Deb in many ways, and
That's
hey,
true.
that Dexter clearly had a thing for that, more than just sibling. And so, because she's a cop, very similar personalities in some ways. Um, I don't know. I think that,
almost like life.
yeah, I think that's.
She's a lot like Deb if Deb was a single mom, you know.
So ain't nobody like Deb. Deb was a Deb was just like a drunk frat dude that just happened to have female parts. Like she's swearing at everybody, getting drunk, like fucking every dude that like just smiles at. Like Deb's a character all into her own.
So he was debating whether or not to kill Molly Park or let her die, even at a point when he saw Kurt was going to kill her, because initially he suspected that she was onto him, onto Dexter, which she's not, and Kurt was going to kill her because he needed a replacement. Clearly, he has a cycle. You know, the girl talks about, oh, the woman at the bar was like, oh, every month or so he comes in there. So I think he has a cycle and he does it every, he has a amount of time. Well, because he had to shoot the one girl in the face, it screwed up his trophy essentially. And so he needed someone new. And so because Molly was asking a lot of questions and she knows that Matt's wasn't at that hotel, he decided two birds, one stone. He's like, I'm gonna take her out, and that's gonna be it. And it was funny, Dexter sort of contemplating whether or not to intervene, and then eventually he did. He did save her, but now that Dexter knows, okay, Kurt is a serial killer. Um, I mean, it's all going to stem from the Iris thing. And if you saw the preview for next week, you saw that they do in fact arrest Kurt. What evidence they get on him, I don't know, but he is arrested, and that it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. As far as there's still like what is episode 7? There's like 10 episodes, right? So there's still shit. There'll be 2 more episodes after next week. So or 3 shit.
And I think that ties into something you said earlier, Brian, that potentially Kurt is the killer for a lot of these missing girls, but he's probably not the killer. He may not be the killer for Iris because, given the fact that we know that's going to happen, they're likely going to arrest him. This thing isn't going to be wrapped up, next episode, and we're not just going to get 2 episodes of town stuff. So, I'm assuming they'll like Dexter will tie things together, but it'll be something will just seem slightly off. That'll be unrelated, but he'll have to figure out another way to get Kurt, because I feel like Iris's murder may be completely unrelated to Kurt's pattern.
You have that.
I
We
don't.
still oil guy has been
Well, that's what I was just
disappeared
gonna say.
for a while.
I was gonna
That's
say. I was gonna say that the oil guy has more to do with Iris, because Iris was Native American. She was, on the reservation. She knew that, and with what was going on in the very beginning of the episode, a lot of the Native Americans and other townspeople were, protesting the oil guy being there. So depending on where it was, what part of the land, the fact that that white deer got killed on Native American land, I think that the Iris points more towards the billionaire guy than any of the other ones. And I don't know necessarily that he's still not involved with Kurt, but I do think that specifically he's involved with Iris.
Yeah, they could be or know what each other's up to, or yeah, it could be 2 separate things, or maybe they're together, or because I find it. I mean, it's possible that Kurt's done all this on his own and nobody knew, but I don't know, man. I think Matt probably knew. I think well, shit, he has people. Remember, he sent some dude to some hotel to pretend to be Matt. Kurt has people. He is a rich guy. He is connected. A lot of people, vouch for him. He's helped a lot of people. He has a lot of friends, a lot of allies. So the notion that this couldn't be something bigger than just, he kills women, absolutely possible. And like we said, there's too many episodes left for it to just be cut and dry and be like, oh, it was Kurt and we're going to take him down.
Well, yeah, that, and it also seems, Kurt seems very perceptive, more perceptive than Dexter is catching on to, because he's been very buddy buddy with Dexter this whole time. He's very interested in his life, as Jim and everything. And Dexter's been wondering this whole time, why is Kurt in my face? Why is he so in my business? Why is Kurt, all about helping out my son? It's like, because he has some idea who you are. He also gets those serial killer vibes from Dexter, and potentially whoever killed Iris, he may be getting the same vibes from that person.
It's like we're brothers in this.
As Kurt sees it, yeah.
And how obviously the wild card in all of this is Harrison. Where does he fall? When is Dexter going to finally open up to him? Like yeah, it was a problem last week and this week. You know, you just desperately want Dexter to be like, look, I understand this is what's going on. He doesn't necessarily have to say that he's a serial killer, but he could say, you know, I've hurt people.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he'd be, you know, approach it from a light direction. But I really thought they were going to have more of a conversation about the Trinity killer than what they ended up saying. So yeah, that's the thing I'm waiting for, is for that
No, I
sort of
told you
breakthrough.
they're waiting on the Trinity killer because that's Harrison's real dad. So they're not going to talk about that yet.
Like, well, you know, and it's one of those things where, yeah, like you said about Harrison, how much is it going to mess him up? How much, you know, given that he's clearly starting to see Kurt as more of a father figure than Dexter. You know, once everything is out in the open, how much is this going to mess him up? You know, is this going to push him more towards being someone like Kurt or the Trinity killer?
And then we also have Molly Park, where I mean everyone's um she's in a dangerous spot. Like everybody, you know, she literally was going to be killed. It was going to happen. A lot of crosshairs are starting to circle her because she's digging in an area where it just so happens to be a bunch of serial killers hiding out, and and it's funny because she's literally, you know, the expression in the lion's den. She's in the lion's den and doesn't quite realize it.
Yeah,
I
that was a
think,
very
go ahead, Larry.
okay. That was a very tense scene, honestly. You know, and you know, it was hard to tell whether or not she was going to make it out of that until Dexter shows up. Which, by the way, the moment after he showed up, I think that was one of the strongest moments in the show because there's a lot of subtle things that he does there. You know,
Him
a
and
lot of,
Kurt, it's a war. It's a game of chess. Him and
yeah,
Kurt, that whole scene. You're right, 100%.
and he's reading him to the point where, you know, he knows the door locks, the, you know, only locks on the outside, and he's holding it over and he's looking at Kurt and he's seeing that he doesn't fit Kurt's pattern at all, you know, and he kind of smirks and he goes farther in and he looks in the bathroom and everything because he knows that Kurt won't touch him because he doesn't fit Kurt's pattern and it would mess everything up.
Well, and I think, too, when you look at Molly and what's happened with her, uh, Dexter now, so say she was onto Dexter a little bit as far as he's Dexter, not the fact that he was the Bay Harbor butcher or whatever, but even just him being not who he says he is, now it looks like he's the good guy. He's the hero. So immediately, even if she knew who he was, like as far as Dexter Morgan, he looks like an outstanding good person now as opposed to before.
Yeah.
I love the scene with the girl. That was gonna be the victim, and then her boyfriend shows up, and like Kurt is so pissed. He's just outraged. Like that was a funny moment. But let's jump to the wrestling match because that was a moment in which, you know, Harrison, you know, put on full display his anger and what that can lead to, and the fact, and he's a badass wrestler, you know, but the fact that he you know, snapped a dude's arm in half. You have other kids threatening him, which I think will play a role later. Maybe they come for him. Um, we have Kurt embracing him. Good job. You did exactly what you needed to do. We have the moment Dexter pushes him away. Like I said, those two are playing a game of chess. They know more than they're telling each other about each other. And Harrison's now in the middle of that even. So, yeah, great scene.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Kurt is always talking about what a mess up and what a disappointment his son Matt was. And I feel like he knows who Dexter is, like he knows who Harrison is. And given that he sees a lot of himself in Harrison, Harrison is the son that he always wanted, which is another part of this thing, you know. And I think that scene also shows that Kurt is publicly very messed up in a lot of ways that people would gloss over. You know, just sort of see it as him being a rich entitled jerk, maybe, but really it's just straight up sociopath behavior.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Kurt and everything that he's doing, it's he seems very. I mean, obviously he's a psychopath, but it seems like something's wrong with him too. So it's not just like I don't know if it's a developmental delay or if he's just so crazy that he seems distraught when things like it. It's not just like a mood disorder. He himself feels very off. So, for this whole town to be like, he's a good guy, he's this. And I'm like, man, no, for no one else. I'm not saying that everybody should have figured out that he's a killer, but
He's
sorry.
very manic at points. Yeah.
Yes. Like I was dropping the dog's leash, just taking the dog out. But yeah,
I think, but they have the scene where, was it, what's his name? I wrote it, the cop that was messing with dating. Hold on, I got
Logan.
it.
Logan.
Logan. Yep, Logan. Logan. When Angela was even suggesting that Kurt, it could in any way, shape, or form be, involved in Matt's disappearance. You saw how freaked out he was. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And he start going into how his entire career and everything that he's worked towards, Kurt backed him. And you start hearing, and a lot of people, it sounds like that Kurt is someone who throws his money around, and he funds the wrestling team. He does this, he does that. So in everyone's mind, he's this weird sort of rich guy, but he's also seems to legitimately help the community.
yeah, but those are the worst kind, man. The weird rich dudes that just throw their money around. I mean, those are the ones that end up getting away with like the most awful shit.
Oh yeah.
And that seems to be why he's doing it. At least that's my opinion. That he's incredibly charitable and wants to seem like one of the better people in this community, so that nobody even considers the idea that this guy, this murderer, could be him.
Or not even that they don't consider it. They
hand wave it.
They bring up Matt screws up all the time. We know about the boat incident. But all that gets glossed, all that gets swept away because it's Kurt's boy. It's like, yeah, well, it's Kurt's. So,
well, yeah, it's Kurt's boy.
Everybody knew about the boat incident. Like it was pretty much common knowledge. So, like you guys were saying, it's Kurt's boy, so it's okay. And it's like, no, he's a giant piece of shit. But because like we've been saying, he just throws his money around and everything's okay. He'll just make a donation in this person's name or something, and everybody just kind of goes along with it.
And like when he was on the floor for the wrestling match, Dexter's like, well, why can't he be down there? She's like, well, because it's Kurt. he gives money to the school. He supports the wrestling team. He's friends with Logan. It's like, that's why.
Yeah, and even when they were doing the search for Matt before, Kurt forced them to start up the search again, he was just picking like every other person out of the crowd and saying something big that he had done for him.
I forgot about that. Yeah, he gives this whole like hero speech where he's like, my boy's out there dying and I need you. And yeah, he literally goes through everyone. Remember when the power was out and I bought all those generators, or when you needed trucks and I got you these, like he starts rattling off everything he's done for the community. He's like, we're a community, we're together. And so that's sort of the persona that he's constructed for himself. But I love how Dexter, seeing that house or that cabin or whatever you want to call it, Dexter's like, yeah, that's a serial killer layer.
Yeah, the fact that there was like no power lines, no communication, no anything. He's like, this is out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing around it. There's no power going to it. He was like, it's all underground, which means it's off the grid. Like everything about it. He's just like, goddamn.
And the fact that we also finally sort of got the answer of why he started faking the Matt stuff, because they were going to be moving in on his territory, which we sort of speculated. And he can't have that.
Yeah. I'm just curious how this whole thing comes to a head because, again, as we see in the trailers, he's going to have a conversation with Jim or Dexter, and I guess we'll get some sort of view into his state of mind to some degree, or maybe not. Maybe he'll hold up the facade of Kurt the whole time, because maybe, like we kind of suggested before, this other murder is so disconnected from all this that he feels comfortable that they've got the wrong leads.
Yeah, I did not see that coming when she found
I,
the body. I was like, what?
well, also when you look at that small of a town, even him being a murderer, he could probably get off with some money. So they would almost have to try him somewhere else for it to be a slam dunk case. Otherwise, he'll probably get away with it either anyway.
And that's where Dexter comes in.
Yep.
Or Harrison.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, even if they do have enough evidence, because of his impulses, does Dexter want him to get arrested, or does Dexter, secretly want him to get away with it so that he can come after him himself?
That used to be one of his plays, wanting them to get off so that he could take
Like,
care of it.
yeah. So what? So that's what I'm curious about. Will his impulses win out?
Well, and remember that Iris is what's her name's mom, his little girlfriend's mom. So when you talk about Dexter going after Kurt, it might be Harrison, because once his girlfriend finds out about it and finds out that her mom like died, she didn't just go missing, like all these things, he might go after Kurt as opposed to Dexter. Remember all the previews and all the little sound bits we get where it's Dexter talking with Harrison about killing somebody, like they work together. Always in It's always implied, but that may be why it's implied. They may get Kurt together.
Yeah, it could be that, or as I believe one of you suggested before, what if it's not so much Harrison? What if it's Iris's daughter? Because she's mentioned that she's had similar rage, and issues, and like clearly there's some social problems that have developed because of her mother missing as well. It could be Iris's daughter. I can't remember her name. The girl roughly
Audrey.
about her. Audrey. Yeah, it could be Audrey.
Yeah, we did have a theory about that, a few weeks back, because she also fits sort of, because we're like, okay, new blood, it's, Harrison, but it's like she sort of fits the mold as well in many ways.
Yeah.
She
I
even
was
gives a
saying,
little talk about being an outsider and, not fitting in.
yeah, I was saying, what if those two, they talk about new blood, if it's both of them kind of working together? Because Dexter, Dexter
Ron-
didn't have,
Ronald and Scarlet.
yeah,
The Big Sky reference.
but you have in this, Dexter always had people helping him, whether it was unknowingly or knowingly. And then,
That's true.
and Deb was helping him. So for the new blood to be those two kind of working together, Audrey and Harrison would still be cool. It would still make sense. And I theorized that pretty early on, but I don't know whether or not that'll be what happens, or even Dexter kind of helping them kill Kurt and then taking the rap for it and going to jail. I think there's got to be a way where Dexter either dies or something happens where his story at the end of this. But
yeah, the whole point I think of the season is to wrap up Dexter's story. But then the question becomes, okay, if Harrison's still a minor, right? So it's like, okay, what is the next step for him? Where does he go? Who takes? Does he just go off on his own? Like he is becoming the character that I'm more like, yeah. How does his story end? Or where does it go? Or how did they set up the next part? Or what if Hannah's still alive and this is all part of a plan, some big plan?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that title could represent, and it could also represent a new generation of killers, outside of Harrison and Audrey, because these kids in this town, we've seen them do a lot of messed up things, that Dexter's not ready for. We already saw early on that, with a lot of newer technology, Dexter's just kind of out of his depth. He wasn't prepared for the drone or a lot of other things. He just kind of seemed like this lost, just sort of older, middle-aged man who didn't understand this technology, and once again is also out of practice because he hasn't worked in his field for so long.
Yeah, he hasn't worked in the killing field in a minute.
Well, yeah, because there was the drone, and then there was like the what was it, the sort of infrared camera and everything that was out there. And
Yeah, the fact that he missed that, he was like, "Fuck." But yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say the whole show took place in Miami though, so like those aren't things he's used to either. Like it's like, what the fuck is a hunting camera?
yeah,
The I was taking a look online. I haven't read reviews for this show. I really haven't. And I started poking around, and I have noticed they're a lot more mixed than I thought they would be. So I did see that some people have a few issues with the show. Um, but I don't, and that's, I was reading them, and some of them, and I was just like, I don't know why you're complaining. So I just wanted to bring that up because I have seen it, and I just want to say I'm enjoying it. I don't have issues with it. Some people do or have had some problems, but um, yeah, no. Even trying to be as critical as possible. The only thing I could possibly gripe about for the entire season so far might the conversation with Batista and Angela. That was very like coincidental. It's if I wanted to nitpick, I could say, okay, the fact that he brought up Dexter's name and all that, or Harrison and all that, is pretty insane, but that's probably it. I think everyone's playing their role well. I think Kurt, that whole storyline, everything.
Well, even the Batista showing up, to me, replacing Harry with Deb, that was like a choice. Having Batista show up is a choice. Those are things that to me are reminiscent of the previous stories, but it's just like almost like a cool nod. Like, did it have to be Batista that showed up and kind of gave him that hint? It could have easily been Molly pointing
Angela.
there we go. God, I was like Bassett.
I have it all written down. I don't know why this show. I too have had more issues with the names.
Oh,
Molly Park. Like I write it in giant letters at the top of my page.
and I'm good with names normally. I don't know if it's like sleep deprivation or what. Today I'm like not with it, but with Angela, she could have easily been pointed towards Dexter by Molly because Molly, they keep dropping these hints, but to have Batista show up and be the one to do it to me was just a kind of like a reminiscent, cool little nod, and I had zero issue with it. Did it make sense? Not really. Was it a little bit over the top?
Well,
Yes.
I thought it was a little out there, but then they backed it up with the Harrison confiding in Audrey scene. So there was already a setup of that information coming out. You know what I mean? Like the show sort of had a little backup. So to me, the Batista thing was sort of a little fun thing for the audience. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I saw some people griping about certain things, and I was just like, "What the fuck?" There are certain shows we do that where I could see sort of mixed reviews. Like, okay, I get it, but this one, for me, this show's been almost a consistent 9 out of 10 all the way through for me.
well, yeah, and it's not like the core of the show has changed. It's very much still Dexter. You have a different setting, a slightly different feel because you're partially focusing on a younger generation, but it's all done really well. And maybe it's that little bit of unfamiliarity that's really bothering some people. I mean, other than that, I really couldn't, pinpoint anything that I'd understand that people wouldn't like about this if they liked the original show, especially if you had problems
Yeah.
with the ending.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I've loved this series because it's yes, they've added some new stuff. Yes, there's some different things going on, but to me, like we've said 100 times, it's very much Dexter. You have the narration. You have even, and we talked about it when he was when Angela called him and like, "Hey, I need you to come to dinner," and he's like, "Fuck!" Like that's all. It's very much Dexter. So for people to bitch and moan about some of the most minute things, uh, I don't know. That to me leads me to believe that they're not huge Dexter fans to begin with because it's not a whole lot different.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on this week. Anything else about episode 6?
Well, I feel like Dexter's little sit down with Logan at the bar is foreshadowing for all the things he's about to do wrong, in his relationship, that he is going to rebound early, likely with the bartender and everything. And, he's going to make all those mistakes that Logan pointed out not to make because he wasn't actually there for that conversation.
True.
He was there to find out, how much does Angela actually know about him. And so, he wasn't actually listening to Logan's advice. So I have a feeling that all those little mistakes, he's going to do all that stuff.
If I was Dexter, I'd be trying to talk to the bartender. Oh,
there's clearly something there.
Yeah, yeah. How do you think? Well, one last thing before we wrap this up. Then going to Logan, yeah, because he had a lot of scenes. He's been important in the last 2 episodes, and he seems to have somewhat of a loyalty to Kurt. Where is he? Where does his story go? Could you see him in any way? He seems like a genuine guy, but is there any scenario where he knows anything? Could you see that possibly being a storyline?
Where Kurt knows something?
Or Logan knows something?
Or Logan possibly knows something? Yeah, Logan's
not
been
saying he does anything, but that maybe he knows some shit. I don't know.
It's hard to say. Logan seems like the most genuinely good person on the
He
show.
Does. He absolutely does.
Well, I made the comparison before where, Dokes is an asshole, but Dokes was a good cop. Dokes was
a great character. Such a good character.
It's funny you mentioned because we were talking about that. We were talking about the fact that Logan also knows, he's a wrestler. He trains the wrestlers and everything, and Dexter knows jiu-jitsu, and Logan may, unfortunately for Dexter, wind up being a more competent Dokes.
Yeah, plausible.
Like, he may be covering all those gaps that Dokes had that Dexter was able to exploit in certain ways. This might be his end.
But yeah, anything else about episode 6 of Dexter New Blood?
No.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
All right. We appreciate everyone listening. Looking forward to the next several episodes, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.